Hey, Clemson family, there's some recent Tigers quarterback history to revisit after Clemson's 41-10 win at Georgia Tech to open the season, but I can almost guarantee it's not the quarterback history that you're thinking of when I say that.
I'm Daniel Shirley. I want to talk about that Tiger defense and especially KJ Henry and his big game Monday night against Georgia Tech in the opener.
I'm Bill Zimmerman, and welcome to episode 21 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. This is where I usually say a lot about subscribing to us. We're on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff and all the podcast services, but we're excited about last night's game, so let's get to it. What a long, strange trip it was through that game. A rough first half, although the Tigers had the lead going into halftime, and then really started to find their top form coming out of the halftime break.
It was a strange first half for sure, and maybe really even first quarter and a half, because it felt like the offense found some rhythm at the end of the first half. The punt block was huge. There's a touchdown, and then they had the drive, pretty impressive drive to score the second touchdown and go up 14-0. But then Tech scores, it's 14-3, and then Tech scores again coming out of the half, and it's 14-10, and you're thinking, oh no, what's going on here? This does not look like a top 10 team. This does not look like the team we've heard about during preseason camp. And then, Bill, it felt like the offense found its gear and really clicked in, and it was impressive the way that the offense played after that. I felt like at 14-10, maybe there's some nervousness, maybe there's some looking at the scoreboard and thinking what's going on here, that this offense really went to work and had an impressive drive, and he kicks a field goal from BT Potter to make it 17-10. And then they score again shortly after that to make it 24-10 on a DJ Uiagalelei 9-yard touchdown. So after that, it really felt like Clemson took control of this game offensively, defensively, and we saw the special teams. The special teams were almost perfect Monday night.
Let's talk about that early offensive form. Head coach Dabo Swinney and offensive coordinator Brandon Streeter in separate interviews both mentioned communication issues. And, I suppose that's to be expected. Hey, it's week one. You've got new option routes being installed for the quarterback and receivers to deal with. You've also got guys in new positions along that offensive line, as well as a new offensive coach. If that's really what it chalked up to, and if they sort of got it sorted out, like you said, a little bit going into the half, and then certainly something they were able to pay attention to during the halftime break, you hope that it's going to work itself out moving forward and be much less of an issue or be eliminated entirely.
It was not good early. I mean, let's just be honest. There were struggles. We know the fumble that DJ had earlier in the game that didn't really look like a fumble. But after they got settled, I was really impressed with how they played. The receivers played better. The tight ends got involved, which I thought was huge at a couple of times. The running game still a little mystery there, but it felt like they figured out some things in the passing game, and hopefully they can take that into the next game and then beyond and play offense the way they did for the last 2.5 quarters as opposed to the way they did the first quarter and a half.
Here's a little bit about what head coach Dabo Swinney had to say post-game. This interview is courtesy of TigerNet.com.
Communication things that we got to clean up. Was really disappointed on a 3rd down and 3. We were all jacked up. The line went one way and our skill went the other way, and it was that bad stuff happens. It was a TFL for us.
To hear the full interview, go on over to TigerNet.com or their YouTube channel to hear the rest. Now let's get into that sort of quarterback history that I alluded to. And no, I don't think that this is reminiscent of when Trevor Lawrence was about to unseat Kelly Bryant, although Cade Klubnik sure continues to lessen my skepticism. But the history that I'm thinking about is that DJ Uiagalelei, in having that rough start and then being able to adjust, reminded me a little bit of Josh Boyd in that 4th and 16 game, that bowl game against LSU, where he struggled early, having trouble coping with the blitz in that game, and then finally settled in. Also, a couple of injuries from LSU didn't exactly hurt Clemson's chances there. And you did have the Georgia Tech guy ejected for targeting, which was another similarity. But Uiagalelei did start to figure things out, piece it together, and finish up stronger. He talked about how he felt confident as the game went on and slowed down. Let's go ahead and throw that clip in there again, also courtesy of TigerNet.com.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like second half. I feel like it was 2 big drives. Philly really felt good throwing the ball wise. Feel like he was just out there playing, just having fun. I felt confident out there. It just kind of the game kind of slowed down. Sometimes when you play as any quarterback, receiver, running back, anybody on defense, the game starts to slow down. So when that game starts to slow down, it's real fun. It makes the game a lot easier.
So that's another interview you can see in full at tigernet.com or on their YouTube channel. Daniel, what did you think of Uiagalelei specifically and how he started, how he finished?
Two different games, really. That's the way it felt in the stadium, Bill. I mean, the first quarter and a half looked a lot like last year and was not what you wanted to see if you're a Clemson fan. You know, you and I are texting back and forth, and, you know, I was sharing my thoughts to you. There were some open guys that he didn't see in the middle of the field. And now, is that all on him? Is the guy, you know, we've heard a lot about option routes. Is he running the wrong route? Is there not a lane to see the route with the offensive line? We don't know. We're not in the middle of the field. We're not going to know those kinds of things. But that first quarter and a half looked a lot like all of last year. And then something clicked. I don't know what it was, but when it's 14-10 and then they score touchdown, they score pretty much the rest of the game offensively, and they outscore Georgia Tech 27-0. I think you have to be impressed by that. And that starts with DJ. And he made some really, really good throws in this game. I point to the touchdown to Bo Collins. I know that was earlier in the game in the second quarter, but, you know, there were a couple of throws, a longer throw to Bo Collins, you know, the throw to Davis Allen on a huge third down. It's 3rd and 5, and they pick up a big chunk of yards on that play and then go down and score on that drive. So I thought DJ looked like a different quarterback about halfway through the first quarter than what he looked like earlier in the game. And then especially in the third and fourth quarters, he played really, really well.
You know, there's another clip I want to bring in here from tigernet.com, and it's something that you may not see written about very much, but it just shows what a good job Uiagalelei does of seeing what the defense is throwing at him. Listen to the detail in this clip.
No, they did a lot of similar stuff, but they threw a lot at us, man. Dropped a lot of guys, buzzed a lot of linebackers, run a lot of spinning with the safeties, spin the one high, 1 week, 3 rat. Did a little bit of 26 invert a couple times, but they had some good calls dialed up for when we had plays on third down. One of them they dropped right into each window we had for the routes, and I had to hit the check down. But they did a good job on the first half. Did some really good stuff.
Again, courtesy of tigernet.com. Check it out on their webpage or their YouTube channel. But my goodness, like he rattled off, half a dozen things there that you have to be able to identify as a quarterback. And so it does kind of talk about maybe communication issues, or as he put it, the game slowing down for him and his teammates. It's all there. The guy we saw at Notre Dame, as Dabo Swinney loves to say, is still that guy. So it's just a matter of piecing it all together and getting on the same page with the rest of the teammates.
And look, Bill, that's to be expected a little bit. I mean, look, you don't want the offense to play the way it did the first quarter and a half. Nobody wants that. They don't want that. The coaches don't want it. Nobody wants it. But there is some of this that has to be expected a little bit. And think about where they are as an offense. They've got 2 starters who are back on the offensive line, but they're in different spots in Walker Parks and Will Putnam. And then you've got a freshman starting at right tackle. Well, then you've also got the receiving core that was banged up all of last year, and now most of them are healthy. So there's a lot of new there, and you're trying to figure things out in the first game against a defense that had a lot of new parts as well. So some of this is to be expected. Hopefully this is a learning experience for this offense, and it looks a lot more like the second half moving forward than it did the first half.
Davis Allen at tight end did look really good. Fantastic grab along the sideline. Antonio Williams with 4 catches for 37 yards. Bo Collins, 3 catches for 54 yards and a TD. Those 3 really were the bright spots on offense. And then not as much commitment to the run as we would have expected in that game. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes along. Swinney and Streeter insisting on a balanced attack during that game, and that included splitting those carries up, not only among the 3 top running backs, but also with Uiagalelei. Now let's get into Cade Klubnik and tell me what you thought of what you saw at the end there against Georgia Tech.
I thought he looked special. I did. And I know it's the end of the game. Who knows who's playing on defense for Georgia Tech? I haven't gone back to watch the film to see who's on the field and who's not on the field. But I know who Cade Klubnik was playing with. He was playing with a bunch of freshmen, a bunch of young guys, a bunch of backups. And Bill, he looks like he belongs on the field. Again, DJ's the starter. He should be the starter. He's earned that right. And let's hope that Clemson fans embrace him but Cade Klubnik looks like he's ready, and his accuracy is there. His confidence is there. He's decisive with where the ball is going to go and supposed to go. You heard the broadcast talk about it last night. The ball goes where it's supposed to. There doesn't look to be a whole lot of second guessing. So, really impressive opening performance by Cade Klubnik. It's one drive. It's against Georgia Tech. So all of those factors are true, but I think you have to be impressed by what you saw from him Monday night against Georgia Tech.
Definitely impressed. He looked fabulous. I do love it. I do want to throw a little water on what you're hearing from a lot of the national media about, oh, there's this huge controversy, or this is what it takes for Clemson to win a title. Look, if you think an either exhausted bunch of Georgia Tech starters or a bunch of lesser recruited freshmen and inexperienced players out there trying to get to figure things out for the Yellow Jackets, if you think that's representative of what would be faced against a playoff team, come on, like that, you're missing half the argument there if you're saying, oh, just start him now based on what we saw last night. And the other thing I'll say is everyone has a plan until he gets punched in the mouth, is the old cliche. He certainly didn't get punched during that drive. And I will admit, hey, look, I said that about Trevor Lawrence, and he rarely wavered in that regard. So a lot of potential in Klubnik, but I do think it's going to be a while before it's time to even talk about making a change like that.
I agreed, 100% agreed. But, Bill, after one drive, I feel 100% better about where the quarterback situation is this year than where it was last year. And, last year, if DJ was out, they really didn't have an option. I mean, Tyson Pumajon, fine athlete, fine young man, good quarterback in the right system, but he's not a thrower. I mean, he's just not. And so he couldn't push DJ, and he couldn't challenge DJ for the job. If DJ doesn't do what he's supposed to do, Cade Klubnik can play. So there's a much better feeling about this quarterback group than there was last year. And I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle for this team.
Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, and Georgia Tech really struggled against the Clemson defense. A couple of warts out there for sure for Clemson, but overall they held the Yellow Jackets to 2 of 16 on third down attempts. Boy, that's impressive. Also held Georgia Tech to 75 rushing yards. These stats are courtesy of Clemson Sports Information. Tigers have now held 5 straight opponents below 100 rushing yards. Just overall, a really good performance, and there are going to be some things to dissect and to look at and to maybe dampen a little bit of the enthusiasm, but for sure, for a week 1 performance, very capable.
I think so. With a week 1 performance, remember, with a new defensive coordinator, with a new co-defensive coordinator, a new defensive line coach, and a offense that you're facing with a totally new coaching staff other than the offensive line coach. This is not the quarterback who Clemson played against last year either, against Georgia Tech. And I think Jeff Sims at least gives Georgia Tech a chance to be functional on offense. And now they've got some issues to figure out. They had 10 penalties. They had the 2 blocked punts, and Jeff Sims did throw the pick on the first play of the game. But I think that was because of, for me, the star of the game, and that was KJ Henry. I thought KJ Henry looked like the best player on the field for a lot of this game. And the way he got after Jeff Sims, he created the first interception for Andrew Makuba. There was almost another interception for Nate Wiggins that would have been a clean pick 6. And KJ was all over the field and really dominated this game. So liked what I saw from him. It's great to see Brian Brzee back on the field. The linebackers look great. I mean, my goodness, Barrett Carter all over the field. I mean, just making plays left and right. Trenton Simpson making plays. And then I thought the defensive backs played really, really well also. So really impressive performance by the defense. Maybe clean up some tackling on the edges. Wes Goodwin talked about that. But I think that's the only thing you could really kind of nitpick about this game.
I'll go a little more than that. I will admit that at one point, after a couple of 4th and 1 conversions, that I texted either you or another friend, and I said, so much for the best group of defensive tackles in the country. Like, this is Georgia Tech. You're not supposed to allow that to happen, that a guy just takes the ball, bull rushes straight through you if you're the best defensive tackles in the country. So some work to be done there. And then it was great to not hear Nate Wiggins' name very much all night, but surely I saw some things exploited on the other side of the field. Sheridan Jones and Fred Davis not hot out of the gate. Both earned a lot of compliments in camp. I liked how Sheridan Jones finished the year last year, looked good in the Cheez-It Bowl game, looked good at other times as well. So I'm not saying that that's a problem all year long. Definitely some things to work on over there, though.
I think so, and they need to be consistent because Fred Davis had 3 or 4 really, really good plays, right? That Georgia Tech tried the swing pass and had the one receiver blocking for the other. He gets through the blocker and breaks up the play. It's as well as you can play that play, right? But then there were some issues for sure. I mean, you're in a bailing technique for no reason. And now, is that what the scheme called for? I don't know, but they gave up some plays where they probably shouldn't have. Or if they're playing against a better team, it's going to be a bigger play. So, you got to get that stuff cleaned up. But again, that's game 1. I would imagine all those guys will be better moving forward. And they do have a schedule that's pretty manageable for the next few weeks.
The front 7 at least has to figure out what to do on some of these delayed screens. They gave up some inexcusable gains there. The tackling wasn't great, but also it looked to me, just as an amateur look on the outside looking in, that one difference between this Avengers group on the front and the Power Rangers that we had in 2018 for the title run, the Power Rangers were really good at owning their space and waiting until it was the right time to shed a block. And I think there's some over pursuit or just more aggression out of these guys. I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's a scheme that's being called, but something's got to improve there. And I did remind myself a few times of the old directive that Sweeney gave to Brent Venables after the 2015 season of, hey, look, we can bend, we can't break. And that's what the Tigers did a really good job of last night. Yeah, they had some zone seams exploited. Yeah, the screens worked too well too many times. But overall, only 10 points on the board. And yeah, that's more than I predicted, but a very good performance and pretty happy overall, despite a few rough moments.
We talk bend and not break. They only gave up 237 yards. So that's pretty good for bending up and not breaking. But there were a couple of impressive drives by Georgia Tech where you watch the drive and go, what are you doing? I mean, what's going on here? The first drive of the second half, I'll specifically point to that as a drive that was pretty head-scratching for the Clemson defense, and Georgia Tech took advantage. Is it 2 or 3 drives a game that they did that? Maybe be realistic about that. And I'm as unrealistic as anybody, Bill. I mean, you know that. You get the text from me during games. I think this defense should stop a team like Georgia Tech every drive. And that's just not realistic. Georgia Tech has players on that team that are pretty good as well, and they made some plays. And again, I'll start with Jeff Sims. I was impressed by Sims last night. He's several years in that program now as a starter. They do have a new offensive coordinator. They do have a new scheme. But he looked impressive at times during the game last night. But then the Tigers still got after him, and Henry hit him a couple of times, caused some bad throws. Brzee got the big sack at the end with Jeremiah Trotter. So there's a lot of good things. There's some things that need to be cleaned up, and I think that's a positive going into game 2.
Henry, without a doubt, the player of the game. Brzee looked really good first game back, returning from injury. Plenty of success to look at. Plenty of spots to work on as well. So we'll see how they do. We're not going to be able to gauge much out of the Furman game this week, maybe not even be able to gauge much out of the Louisiana Tech game next week. So it could come down to Wake before we really see any true measurable progress from these guys.
That's the college football season for a lot of teams, and especially a team that's at Clemson's level. Again, not a top 10 team the first quarter and a half, but a top 10 team after that. And we'll see how they play this week. And really, you just want to see clean play, and you just want to see efficient and to beat the teams you're supposed to beat and not struggle and play like this team played after halftime. I think you'll be pretty happy with that.
I do hope that the troubles in this game will instill a little bit of a sense of urgency to say, wow, really, we had problems A through E against Georgia Tech. That's not going to hold up if you want to get to the rest of your goals. But a really cool tweet from Walker Parks today. Proud of the teammates, won the opener. That's the first of the 5 team goals. They got it done. I would have been happy with a 1-point win as a fan, but as someone really trying to look to analyze the team, there is some work to be done here.
There is, and that's okay. If you're a finished product in game 1, despite my crazy person text to you during the game, I'm well aware of that. You're not going to be a finished product in game 1. If you are, then there's a problem. Either you're one of the best teams we've ever seen, or there's a problem. I think that you would tend to hope that the team gets a lot better from now until the Wake Forest game. Bill, I'll tell you one area that looked really, really good that has some years been a shaky spot is special teams. I thought the special teams had one of the best games I've seen from a Clemson team in a long time in that unit. And BT Potter, perfect on field goals. Every kickoff into the end zone. Aiden Swanson, I thought was huge punting.
Yeah.
Remember that day one when Dabo Swinney said it was the worst punting exhibition he had ever seen? And then last night, Aiden Swanson was outstanding. Will Taylor, no problems catching punts. We've seen that before, right? With guys.
Don't say that out loud.
We've seen that with guys struggling to catch punts. And then the 2 block punts. I mean, if you do all those things that I mentioned and you don't even have the 2 block punts, it's an A+ night. And then you block 2 punts, it was as good as I've seen in a long time from Clemson special teams.
Yeah, one of the things I did tweet during that game was, hey, little something for all the people who said Clemson should have held on to those scholarships instead of signing a lot of those February guys. Wade Woodaz definitely among them. He sure got a little impact in there right away and is going to give future opponents something that they're going to have to think about. Well, we have a surprise guest on the line. It's another longtime sports journalist with many national, regional, and local outlets going back decades, and someone I've obviously known a long time, Jenny Zimmerman, and she's got a few things to point out about the game as well.
I'll just say this, as a casual fan, everything I heard all night about DJ, that was expectation of fans wanting everything to be incredible. And first game out, a guy who's carrying I would imagine a lot of mental stress and baggage for the expectations that are put on him now. With Klubnik not helping anything in his mind, he's bound to be less than perfect on a night like that. He had a lot of bugs to work out of his system, and he clearly did it. And God knows we were told 75 times that he's lost weight and he's trim and slim, and it's helping immensely. I still think his mental game has a lot of work ahead, and the last series with Klubnik couldn't have helped that, although Sweeney said he's still the quarterback. I saw a great team. I see a great team on that field a lot more often than you do. You pick them apart, as most fans would, but I see a team that's a fourth quarter team, and of course that first quarter was going to be sloppy. Nobody can go out on a field and not have jitters in the first game and not have a certain amount of adrenaline that will mess with you during plays. By the third quarter, they were every bit the team we always want them to be and we expect them to be, and they looked like a top 10 team to me. I was impressed. I was a little worried we were going to see more of the same with DJ, and it was going to be a little heartbreaking to have to worry about that all season. But now I think DJ has work ahead, but it sure is a brighter spot than it was last season.
One thing that you and I talked about during and after the game, too, is the first quarter is often slow for the Clemson offense. It was during the Trevor Lawrence era, the Deshaun Watson era. But what just dawned on me is your favorite criticism I didn't hear last night, which was, why do they keep running up the middle for 1 yard?
They did it once, and I immediately knew he was going to get stopped. They did it once, and then they stopped. And I really liked Pace. He reminds me of James Davis, CJ Spiller. I think he's got serious potential. As long as they get a little more innovative and stop trying to punch it up the middle ad nauseum, which often for Clemson does not work. You're right. I only complained one time last night, and I think I might have just complained in my own head. I don't think I said it out loud.
There you go. Another longtime sports journalist and someone who even used to chart plays for her college team once in a while, just on her own, not an official role. Jenny Zimmerman joining us right there and jumping in with a little bit of counterpoint, which is always healthy. Provide your counterpoints in the comments on YouTube. Tweet at us with your opinions where you think we're not hitting the mark the way you see it, and let us know. We will come at you with another episode this week before the Furman game. We'll see what we can figure out about the Paladins that maybe is a little bit different from what we talked about during the offseason. We may revisit a little more about the Tigers as well in that episode. Daniel, anything else you're going to be looking for?
I would just like to say, if Bill picks apart the team, what do you call what I do to the team?
Billy picks apart the team in a way that I could describe as a fretful fan. Like he's fretting throughout the entire game. And you Although I only hear what you're texting to him as he reads it aloud. You're not communicating with me, but I feel like I'm there. I really do, Daniel. You are more the constantly ready to throw them out on the trash heap fan.
It's hard. It's hard. I will tell you guys, my wife asked me one time, she said, do you enjoy watching Clemson play? And I said, yeah, when they win. And she's like, how did you know if they're going to win until the very end? That's my experience watching Clemson football.
Well,
That is
I'll tell you,
distinct. I agree.
during the Tommy West era and the Ken Hatfield era, there were games where we knew going in that they would not win. And Tommy Bowden fixed that to some extent, and Dabo Sweeney has really gotten them out of that mode, hasn't he?
He has. And look, I mean, we're joking around, and I am negative first. I can admit that. But if you don't trust this coaching staff as a Clemson fan and this head coach and these players, what they've built, I don't know who you can trust.
I see through your negativity. I know you, and I know that it's just fan frustration. I don't doubt for one moment that you have faith in this team and that you guys are actively, positively rooting for them to win. And you can't always go into a game thinking, oh, they can't win this one. Look at FSU this weekend. Look at Old Dominion. I would imagine most Old Dominion fans did not think they would win. And that was a pretty big upset for the weekend.
And I do every once in a while say, hey, remember the Tommy West era? Remember Ken Hatfield? I mean, you have to, if you're people of our age, fans of our age, right, you have to be realistic about it and say it's not that anymore. It's really, really, really good. And you have to appreciate that. And maybe last year reset some of that. I know Dabo has talked about that. Let's reset the appreciation for winning. Maybe some of that's coming true.
I sure hope so. It should be an appreciation and not an expectation. Well, if any news breaks in the next few days, we will react to that as well. We will discuss what it means for the Tigers. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was a little more free-flowing, I think, and hopefully we'll be a little more like that throughout the year. We are glad you found us, Clemson family. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button, hit that follow button, stay up to speed every time we react to big news around Clemson athletics. Our homepage has great resources at clemsonkickoff.com. You can play all our episodes there, and you'll find all our podcast links too. You can also follow us on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff. We retweet news as it happens, give some of our opinions to that in real time every now and then as well. Well, until the next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.
Our shorts are on there. You'll find all our podcast links too. Oh, you know what? I'm not.
Your shorts are on there? What?
YouTube shorts.
There's
That's what they
your
call
blooper.
reels.
Ooh-wee.
There's your blooper right there.
What?
Nothing else that should be the end of the show except for that.